What's up, everybody? Hopefully, everyone is having a great hump day out there. Gonna make sure that you guys can hear and see me and got all of that fun stuff going on. And we are gonna record a live episode of the podcast. And actually, you know what? Let's just yeah, let's get out of. Oh, hold on. I don't think that's gonna work. Let's. Oh, there we go. All right. Now we're back to normal. All right. So it's a Wednesday, and I'm recording a FOMOFanz episode. I got something a little special for you guys today. I got put up some graphics and things for you, the live audience. So I'm going to try to cater to you guys, my live audience that is watching live on all the different channels. So hopefully you guys are going to jump in, bring in your questions, your comments. Happy to answer any and everything that you guys have going on. Hopefully, let's see. Let's make sure the audio is okay. Yep. All right, let's do that. Oh, I can hear myself back. That's always a fun piece. All right, so I'm gonna jump in and record. This is FOMOFanz. So this is my solo podcast that I brought back last week after a couple month hiatus, and we'll talk a little bit about that to kick this off. And today's episode, for those that are wondering, we're going to talk about the 6 COVID lessons to make us all better, right? All better. Who doesn't want to be better, right? And let's see if let's shrink that down a little bit. So we have that ready for the show. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hit record the episode. I do see, oh yeah, look at it. We got a couple of people coming in on the, on LinkedIn, over on LinkedIn. What's up, Ani? How are you? Thanks everybody for joining over on LinkedIn. Actually, I remember now I needed to share that LinkedIn video. I love streaming over to LinkedIn, but I realized that if someone doesn't see that the event is live right away, they oftentimes won't even see the live video unless I reshare it. So let me reshare that real quick, and then we'll jump in. Let me mute myself so I don't have to hear myself again. Thanks for that. Yeah, so cool intro. Yeah, so I'm using Ecamm with Restream. Restream is the sponsor of the podcast, and they're the ones that I upload the video into Restream. And so when I click go live, I can just play the video. I can play any video directly native in feed with audio, which is super easy, clicking one button. Word FOMOFanz Live, powered by Restream. Live video exposure is horrible on LinkedIn. It is. They don't have any. They don't push it a lot, and for a lot of people, if they don't see it in their feed, if you don't ever watch anyone's, I don't see many of them. And I'm on LinkedIn multiple times a day, and I don't see very many live videos myself. And I'm someone that loves live video. And hopefully you guys are going to have to bear with me for a second here. I've been getting really bad headaches, so we're going to go glasses today. All right. So let's get this party started. Thank you so much for the comments. You guys can bring in your questions and comments throughout the show. Like I said, I am going to bring in some cool little, overlays and things that we will be able to use for this episode of the podcast. So with that being said, let's get into the beginning of the podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the FOMOFanz podcast, renamed FOMOFanz the Brian Fanzo show, because why not? And I first just want to start off by saying thank you. I paused the podcast March 14th, and I say I paused. I attempted to record 2 more episodes the following week in March, but I just couldn't get my head wrapped around the fear of missing out and all the things that were going on in the world today. And so during I tried to create an episode, but I just decided I wasn't going to force it, and I paused the podcast. And for anyone that knows about podcasting, you have to ride the momentum. And this podcast was getting 1,500 to 2,000 downloads per episode. It's a solo show, so it's just me marketing, talking about myself. And I just love this audience. And when I brought it back, I had no idea who was going to listen, who was going to watch, if any of you even still had subscribed. And the amount of comments and questions and people that, like, I got a couple of comments. I actually had two different people tell me that they were listening to my podcast in the shower, and they were reminding how much they liked it. And then they also reminded me to not have that visual image of them listening to me in the shower. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you guys for tuning back in, for subscribing, for sharing this podcast out to your audience. This is my solo podcast. I do have the other podcast, Press the Damn Button, that of course is, I'm recording episodes there. We are going live there, on a pretty regular basis as well. And so that one's more of my interview show, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this podcast. But based on just your feedback after one episode, FOMOFanz is here to stay. We are going to stick around, and we're going to have some fun with this show. So, and I got a special one for you guys this time. I usually have a sticky note with a couple different things that I want to cover per episode, and that's how I do my episodes. But for this one, I decided, you know what? I live stream this. I have the sponsor of the show is live streaming. I'm going to use some overlays and some graphics for my live streaming audience. So I had to plan it out. I had to step out this whole thing. So this episode is called The 6 COVID-19 Lessons to Make Us All Better at What We Do. And making us all better at what we do, give a shout out to Restream.io. If you guys just go to Restream.io/join/PTB, which is press the damn button, you can check out some pretty cool offers from Restream. I am using Restream for both of my podcasts. I do my interviews within here. Restream is pretty awesome in the sense of that it can allow you to stream up to 30 platforms at once. We are on Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Periscope, Facebook page, and Facebook profile. But you can even go even more than that. You can do embeds on your website. I know for some of you that are marketers out there, you want to gate your live streams. You can do that with Restream. And it's also beautiful because you can bring in the chat from all the different platforms like you guys have seen me do if you're out there. Live video is definitely a growing concept, since I first pressed the damn button back in February 27th of 2014 when I first had my aha moment of live streaming. And since then, I've been using lots of different tools, lots of different platforms, but I hadn't found one that was really going to push the limits and allow me to do some creative things in ways that I want to do. And Restream stepped up to the bat. They're powering this podcast. They're powering the Press the Damn Button podcast. Great team over there. They just got some massive funding as well. Big shout out to the Restream team. I'm sure this has a lot to do with COVID and the new push to live streaming, but they just announced, it's up there, I'll put the link for the TechCrunch article, but they raised $50 million to help creators and program and live stream. Massive kudos, $50 million on Restream. So there's lots of live streaming tools that are out there. I am all in with Restream. They also work really well with Ecamm Live, which is the encoder platform that I work on the back end. So check out my sponsor, support the sponsor. If you want to sign up, go sign up. I actually just been tweeting back and forth with a couple of people that work for very large sports brands that tweeted me about these platforms. And so definitely, I'm not only am I a fan, but it's one that I'm using and I'm setting up here. So with that being said, let's jump into the actual podcast that we are going to talk about here. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of, share or really just kind of talk about real quick is that, COVID-19 and where we're at, like we're definitely not through this. And I know it's tough. We start seeing different countries do different things, different people in our Facebook feed all of a sudden are going back to Universal Studio and the sports are back. I know the NFL starts tomorrow. I was doing my fantasy football drafts this past weekend, but, I think it's important to, put it out there that, nothing's really changed since the start of the pandemic. We have no new cure. There's nothing new that we've done to stop what's going on. And so we have to be smart. We have to we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for those that maybe they can't protect themselves, or those that have to, have extenuating circumstances. And this isn't a political comment at all. This is much more to do with the fact that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the lessons that we learned have been learning during these times of COVID. But I want it to be clear that, it's not like I believe that this is over. It's not like I believe that we are, we're able to all of a sudden, click a button and things are going to, be all better. But what I do believe we have to do, and I talked about it a little bit on the last episode of this podcast, was we'd have to reflect. We have to have a new perspective. And so for this podcast, it's going to be completely different than the last one. I'm going to break down 6 lessons that I feel we can learn, and I'm going to talk about how we can twist them into our business life, into our personal life, because I believe that's kind of what it's all about. So for those that are watching live, bring in your comments. Feel free to do that. If you are listening to this podcast on one of the podcasting apps, feel free to send out a tweet, tag me on Instagram. I am iSocialFanz. I'd love to hear your feedback. Love to hear suggestions for future episodes, whatever it may be. And so with that being said, let's jump into, I'm going to talk about the 6 lessons, and I'm going to jump into lesson number 1. And so lesson number 1, for those that are watching live, you guys can actually see this up there on the screen. Lesson number 1, everyone has influence and power. And I think this is one of the lessons that we've learned. Influencer marketing has been around for a long time. Definitely nothing new since the beginning of time, right? People that loved a product or a tool, talked about the product or tool, and because people trust people more than they trust a brand or marketing, and nobody wants to be sold to, no one wants to be marketed to. We gravitate to those that look like us, those that we can relate to. And I think one of the things that, if we look back on, from March of 2020 until now, and I know for some other countries, this was hitting you in January. So let's just say for the year of 2020, one of the things that we've found is that, yes, fake news has been around for a long time. And yes, there's been lots of things going on in this, in this space where, we have, different people talking about different ways of doing different things. But here's something that I really wanted to hit home on this idea, is that one of the things we have to realize is that us sharing a post on Facebook, us liking or commenting something, every one of us influences somebody, right? And because I always want to caveat this, influencer marketing or being an influencer, what an influencer means, and this is something that is not talked about enough. An influencer is not someone that has a big following. An influencer is not someone that has a lot of people that, because they're a celebrity. An influencer is truly valuable because they are able, based on the trust that they have, to inspire someone to take action. Action is the key. You are not an influencer if you are not inspiring action. You could be a celebrity, you could be someone that is putting stuff out there, but truly influence means that based on either what you do, what you say, how you live, the content you create, people take action based on your recommendations, based on the things you're doing. And like the toilet paper FOMO that happened, all of a sudden everyone was like, oh my God, they're running out of toilet paper. We need to go out and get toilet paper. And if you think about it, if it was just some people posting on social media, that'd be one thing. But then all of a sudden it was people taking pictures of the toilet paper aisle in their grocery store and sending it to their parents. And then all of a sudden it was this groundswell. And I think for people that, for us to think about it, right? Influencing people to take actions happens more offline than it does online. But in this COVID world, we were forced to do all of this in this virtual online world. And it was so funny. I had people that had never gone live on live stream all of a sudden go live on Facebook Live. And in the middle of their talk, they would be like, oh yeah, and this is my favorite new Netflix show. And all of a sudden, all of the comments were, about this new Netflix show. And they're like, what other shows do you like? And all of a sudden, they were sharing all their favorite Netflix shows. And then I would comment to that person, and they'd be like, man, I had no idea people cared about what shows I was watching. And I was like, well, people, you have trust. People trust your taste, and, they're looking for that. And because you got on live video, you were able to do that. And I had an aha moment with a friend of mine, and she simply said, well, Brian, the only people that ever really took action based on my suggestions or my experiences were the friends that I have offline, the mom group that I belong to, the people that I run into the grocery store. And I came back to a simple concept here, right? That my whole press the damn button mantra, it's that I believe everyone has a story to tell. We all have something to tell, something to share, and people want to connect and relate with people. We want to feel a part of something. And here's the magic is that it's not about doing something different, right? She talked about her favorite Netflix shows, as a mom. And actually one of the things she said was like, she can't watch certain shows that have bad language or that push too many limits because there's kids running around. And I was like, you've always been influential in sharing that with your mom group and the people that are around you. But by putting that online, you're now giving more people access, right? And this comes down to something, it's kind of beautiful. And so, something like washing our hands and wearing masks. And then, of course, Black Lives Matter and the movement around Black Lives Matter. And, I went back and watched. I'm a big TV person for those that know this. And recently on Epix, EPIX, it's on Hulu and Amazon, I think. I didn't watch it on Epix because I'm not even sure what channel that is on. But I watched Helter Skelter, which is the new Helter Skelter, not Helter Skelter, the series, which is a 6-episode series on Charles Manson. And I'm just fascinated by people that are able to build trust, community, inspire people to take action. I'm also love the human psychology of things that are going on. But one of the things that I found that was interesting in the Helter Skelter Charlie Manson story that was told by Epix, and there wasn't a whole lot of brand new stuff that I learned on it, but it was designed fairly well. I like the way that the documentary was set up. But they were talking a lot about like the race war and what was going on in the late 60s and the early 70s and how we were going from the Vietnam War and, the things that were happening there. And I also watched a documentary recently on Bobby Kennedy. And I can tell you I was born in 1981. And I don't know if I just missed the Bobby Kennedy story or Bobby Kennedy wasn't presented in the history books for school because Bobby Kennedy never became president. But I was fascinated. It was probably my favorite documentary I've watched this year. But to connect these dots and bring it back to the Black Lives Matter, which I wanted to connect this into, was that I was watching the Charles Manson thing, and I was watching the Bobby Kennedy piece. And the thing that I kept feeling was, you've got to be kidding me. Like, a lot of the things that we're talking about right now, as far as equality and ending racism and not being okay with, all the things that we are starting to finally expose, and the idea that we need to take different steps to make different things happen. All of this is not new. It's been, it's really interesting because when I look back then, there was all these great movements and there was, great leaders. Of course, we had the Martin Luther Kings and all of those type of things that were going on. And then we had the Jim Crow laws. But one of the things that I look at and I look at in that time is that the influence and power each one of us could yield was much smaller before the internet, before social media. And the reason I bring that back into this realm is because if we think about it, this is the same battle that has been going on for forever. And the fact that I grew up, and because I was born a certain color, I never had to worry about, a cop, because I was wearing a hoodie, making a decision not based on my actions or what I was doing, but just based on the way I looked. And I was very naive to that idea. But there's also something to be said of like a frustration of, what? We've been talking about this for so long and nothing has happened, right? We had Trayvon Martin, we had all the things going on. And the reason I bring all this back is that we now have the influence and power to push this to the next level, to make real change happen. I've always said social media does not replace what we do offline. Social media does not make bad people do bad things. It exposes bad people doing bad things. But it also allows us to connect, relate, and share different perspectives and drive change in our environment, in our world, and everyone that's around us. And I'm bringing this all back because here's the thing, is that if you're like, for me, it's hard to even fathom that anyone could be okay with what has been currently going on in the world for the longest time, right? Since, slavery existed. And that, I'm a big believer that all lives should matter, but you can't make all lives matter until Black lives matter the same as white lives, right? And until everyone is equal, and then all lives can matter. And it's not until then that we can fight that fight. And I'm not going to get political or rant on that piece of it, but where I want to take this conversation is that it is up to us. And for the first time, we have the power. And for all of those that feel like this isn't the first time and they've felt this movement and momentum previously, here's the difference, is that we do have social media, we do have live video, we do have Zoom, we do have Restream.io. We can go out there, we can help people shift their perspectives. And I think this is such a beautiful thing. And it's, I'm not a big believer in forcing change, but we've all been forced to work from home and embrace social and virtual, and it can be overwhelming. And trust me, I have the sign up top there. I do know that there are a bunch of bad people doing bad things, and bad people can use social media against us. And you can have the Russians hacking things, and you can have people doing subliminal messages and sharing fake news and doctoring videos, because that's just ridiculous that still happens. But yes, all of those things are possible in social media, but every great invention, every great technology, every great change that has happened, it can be leveraged for bad people to do bad things, but more so, it can be leveraged for good people to do good things, as long as we don't allow the bad people to prevent us or stop us from embracing what's possible. And so that's number one. Everyone has influence and power. We are proving that with so many different ways. And to me, this is a beautiful thing. I believe, the Me Too movement was pre-COVID, but the Me Too movement got a lot of this started that said, hey, there are so many people struggling. And if you guys, I talk a little bit about TikTok, but TikTok has some tribes out there. And recently, mental health has been a big one. But there's also been a lot of people posting about spousal abuse and saying how they're no longer a victim, and that they're not going to let that person hold them down. And anyone that hits a woman, anyone that bullies someone out of a place of power, you have no time for me. I have no respect. I don't care about you. And I do believe we have to bring these things to the forefront. And social media gives us that opportunity if we are willing to do it. Being silent about things that matter to us does not make changes, does not make things better. And I've said this for forever, and I will never stand down from this concept that I believe everyone needs to press the damn button. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has the ability to impact just one person. Imagine that. If posting on social media, sharing your story helped one person every single day, who wouldn't sign up for that? All right. So that one got a little ranty. Sorry about that. Actually, I'm not really sorry about that. So that was number one. Let's flip up to number two. Number two, everyone can create video, but it isn't as easy as it looks. Now, for some of my friends that are in the video space, and I like to say, I love video because it's the medium I prefer to tell my story. But honestly, video for me, in many pieces of it, I don't think of myself as a great video creator or a master video editor. I have lots of great friends: Roberto Blake, Amy Landino, Nick Nieman, Owen Video, Sean Canal. I have so many great friends that are out there that are great video creators that are doing amazing things with video. For me, video just became the place that I was able to deliver content and put things out there. And the thing about that I heard from some of my friends was like, oh man, everyone's getting on video. Everyone's doing Zooms. Everyone's creating video now. I'm going to have to level up my video. I'm going to have to do more, bigger, and better things. And here's the funny thing. That's not true, because what has happened as people now realize that video isn't as easy as pressing the damn button, is it takes effort. It takes to have a strategy behind what you're doing, and to go live consistently, or to create content that builds a story or gets people to pay attention, right? Like, it's not that people don't have a short attention span right now, right? Like, I watched those entire 6 episodes of Helter Skelter in a day and a half, right? Like, I watched 6 hours about a documentary about someone that I know everything about, right? We don't have a short attention span. We just have no time for crappy content, and we have no time for people to waste our time. And we have so many choices and so many options that we are willing to jump around. We are willing to search to find what we want. And so, although everyone has been forced into virtual and video, the thing that I want everyone to remember is that there's a newfound appreciation for video. I've heard it from so many people that are like, Brian, that all that video you created, I always thought like that was super easy, and that was so cool that that you were doing all that video, and and now that I was forced to do it, like, holy crap, Brian, it's a lot of work, and like editing, and you have to put things out there, and you have to. And for me, this is something that's important, and I want us to take this forward. being consistent with delivering quality video in 2020 will help you stand out, will be the game changer. It's not about leveling up because everyone all of a sudden found the value of a video. I mean, every year since 2005, since 2015 has been the year of video. But for the first time, I believe there's a newfound respect for video. There's a newfound understanding of its value, of its importance. I mean, I'm doing that with virtual presentations. You know, a lot of speaker friends that I had, they didn't even know how to record themselves on video, to send a video to somebody, right? And then on top of that, they're so intimidated by video that they have to go to a studio. They can't wrap their heads around this idea of creating video consistently or doing it from your phone or whatever it may be. And for those that don't know, like, I do so much of my video from my phone or from my GoPro, right? Like, that's where I do a lot of my video. But I want us to not feel, the thing that I got worried about is that everyone's gonna be like, oh man, if everyone's doing video and virtual, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna shy away. I'm not gonna, I don't wanna play, it's too crowded. And here's the thing. I usually believe in that. I usually believe that if everyone's zigging, you must zag. There's actually a FOMOFanz episode, I'll link to it in the comments, about how I use zigging and zagging to build my brand. It's why LinkedIn video is my #1 resource for driving leads for my company. And it's because I heard everyone zigging over to Instagram to create video content. And I was like, you know what? If everyone's going to Instagram to create video content, I'm gonna go to LinkedIn because there's gonna be less people playing there. But I want to, this #2 is that everyone can create video, but if you can be consistent, if you have a niche, own your niche. If you don't have a niche, make it very clear on when you're going to create video, how long your videos are, what people can expect from your video content. Make that, all those things clear, because if you have a niche, the niche is what people connect to what you're going to talk about. If you don't have a niche, because I'm the CEO of Team No Niche, you have to come at it from a little different way. But this is a great time to be doing video, and it's an especially great time to be creating consistent video content. I don't care if it's virtual meetings. I don't care if it's Facebook Live. I don't care if you're uploading it into a Facebook group. Heck, I don't care if you're just using it and you're sending it to a friend group on your text message. I think this is the most beautiful time to embrace the power of consistent video. All right, number three, when everything is virtual, is anything virtual? Now, of course, this is huge for me because that first week of March, and shout out, I see Miss Jennifer Watson, my partner, she's watching. She says, I'm wearing some of those blue glasses. I don't usually wear glasses, but I've been getting a lot of headaches recently, so I'm trying to change that up. Thank you, Jennifer, for watching. I see Maribel Lopez said, great to see you on LinkedIn talking about these topics. Thank you, Maribel, for jumping in and watching as well. But for me, everything changed. I talked about this a lot in the last episode. March, when I lost so many of my speaking gigs, my full-time clients, all 6 of them, canceled their contracts. And I've always been doing virtual, but I was using virtual to sell an offline product. And all of a sudden, I need to now use virtual to sell a virtual product, and figuring out how to price that, how to sell that, how to convey my value in that space. And also, let's face it, I was one of the very few people in the professional speaker space that was using all my social channels and video as my #1 driver for driving, for my speaking leads. A lot of people had books. A lot of people had, different things that they had going on. And because I didn't, it was where I played. And all of a sudden now everyone's playing in my space. But what I found that was interesting was that in March and April, I was doing a lot of research about virtual software and virtual platforms and everything that was out there in the virtual arena. And one of the things that I found, really, probably, exciting, but also a little bit frustrating, was that everyone was rebranding themselves as a virtual platform, as a virtual app, a virtual teacher. I mean, even the restaurant that down the street from me, they call themselves a virtual restaurant here in Virginia. And I was like, I sent them a message, and I was like, "You're virtual? Like, how are you doing this virtual? Are you cooking? Are you cleaning?" They're like, "No. You can order from this app called DoorDash." And I was like, DoorDash has been around for forever. I use it religiously multiple times a week. But the thing that I think there's a lesson here is that when there's forced change and we're forced into a new area, there's a tendency for us to label something that everyone is looking for. And we've seen the trends, right? Like I've shared this on social media, like the amount of people looking for virtual or work from home or remote working, those keywords and trends like shot up like a rocket ship. But one of the lessons that we can take from this is it's okay to pivot into where everyone else is. But what you really need to figure out is once you're in this giant, ocean of everyone being virtual, how are you going to stand out? What makes you different, right? One of the breweries that I saw, in Virginia, unfortunately, it's not that close to my house. One of the breweries said, hey, they went virtual, but what they did when they went virtual is that you can order on their app and they will actually bring their food cart to outside your house and you can get on tap beer, right? Like from the street corner, which I think is just like amazing. I want that in my own town. Shout out to a couple. Altered Suds is one of my favorite breweries here in Warrenton, Virginia. I'd love to see them do that. But the reason I say that is that it's important to understand that, yes, you can remarket, you can brand, you can force yourself to play in this new arena like we have all been forced to recently, with COVID. But it's also just as important to understand what that means to people. And then where are you going to stand out? How are you going to do things differently? Where are you going to play? And this is where I think like some people are like, well, I need to be an early adopter. I need to be the one that's out there. I need to be the first restaurant that is, that is saying that I'm a virtual restaurant. And I would argue, yes, there is some value in being an early adopter. But there's also value about going in there, playing, listening, learning, discovering what's working, and then pushing yourself forward. And the reason I say that is because, Google was the 27th search engine. There was 26 other search engines that wanted to become the verb for searching. They probably didn't want to become the verb for searching. They didn't know that was going to be a thing, right? But we Google things now, right? Like even if you're using Bing or you're using Dogpile or you're using a different search engine, you Google it, right? And it was the 27th search engine. And so it's important. It's valuable to be an early adopter, but it's also equally important to understand where you fit in this new realm and how that all fits in there, right? And so I made this statement about virtual is that I think the greatest innovators in the virtual space are going to be mobile apps. Two of the ones that I believe you should keep an eye on are Socio and Swapcard. And then there's another platform called Run the World. You go to Run the World is the third one. I believe these three platforms are innovating and really disrupting the virtual event space, but because they're going to be doing it in a very strategic way. Yes, they're a virtual component, but their functionality, their components, the things that make that their value proposition worth it are very unique, and it's going to allow them to stand out. So that's number three. Number three, when everything is virtual, is anything really virtual? All right, let's jump over to number four. Number four, what really matters shines bright when we hit pause. Now, for many of you that are out there, I know I love you all, and I appreciate all of the the kind words, and I appreciate all the support. But one of my soapboxes is that I fight every day to have people realize that technology and social media doesn't make us more disconnected. It's the way that we're using it, right? And we have to find and it's not a balance, but we have to find the intersection, the synergy between what we're able to do with our screens and virtual and digital, and then what we want to do as humans. And I believe one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, and I'm seeing this in my network, and a shout out to all of those that are being bold with their decisions. I'm seeing a lot of people decide to move because they realized that they were living in San Francisco or New York or somewhere just because they thought it was the cool place to live, but it wasn't the best place to raise their children. Or if they moved out of this big city, they would now be able to work less hours and spend more time with their family or spend more time traveling or whatever it may be. And I think for me, this has been one of the hardest ones because my entire career since 2003, I've traveled, up to 45, 50 weeks a year. This is the longest I've ever been home ever since I graduated college. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I miss traveling. I miss the road. I miss living out of a suitcase. I miss hotels. I miss airports. But it's also one of those things where my life was built and integrated. I worked so hard to have that synergy of when I was home, I was with my kids, and I FaceTime and text message, and I have things built in so well that the road and the life that I was building wasn't taking away from these things. It was, I built them, in conjunction. And I think for a lot of us, a lot of the decisions we've made is because we're just on a hamster wheel, constantly going. And none of us would have believed many months ago that the world, especially the United States, would press pause. But when we pressed pause and all of a sudden we were forced to social distance and forced to be at home and forced to do things that we never would have imagined, we started to realize what we are missing. But we also started to realize what we are enjoying and what things that we should look forward to in life. And I think this is so important and so valuable. And I'm still wrapping my head around that for myself. A shout out, I'm wearing this hat. It's a black sheep hat for those that are watching on live stream. My good friend Brent Menswar wrote a book called Black Sheep, and it's about understanding and unleashing the extraordinary, awe-inspiring you, and owning the values that what he calls your black sheep values. And I'm going through this book and working on my own values. And one of the things he talks about is that once you figure out your values and you own your values, it's now up to you to put those values out there to the world so that people now know that this is what you value, and that they'll change their behaviors based on their understanding of this, right? And the interview, I did an interview with Brant that'll come out in 2 weeks, right before his book comes out. I already recorded the episode. It's amazing. I got emotional multiple times in the episode, but make sure you're subscribing to Press the Damn Button. I believe it'll be episode 9. Episode 9 on Press the Damn Button will be an interview with Brant. But the reason I bring all that back is I think the beauty in this pause is that we should relook and say, what are our values today? Don't look at it and say, what are the values I've been building my life on? Like right now is unlike any other time in our lives and our history, and it's up to us to reevaluate, to shift our focus and our prioritization and our understanding. And honestly, it's the most beautiful thing I think that we can, well, maybe the second most beautiful thing. Number 6 will probably be my favorite thing of all of them, but definitely something for us to kind of think about as we move forward. Number 5 is probably the thing that excited me the most because it's something I've been preaching and believing for a long time. And number 5 is that transparency and vulnerability are non-negotiable today. And what I mean by that is, and I have this up on the screen for you guys that can see it, preparing for the unprecedented events is impossible, right? Like my good friend, Melissa Angus, she wrote a book called Crisis Ready. And if you're looking for a crisis management book, for a crisis, to wrap your head around crisis management, crisis, training, crisis structure in your business, check out this book. It's amazing book. I mean, everything about this book, and I would never say that about a crisis book, because even when she told me, I was like, oh, I'm not going to like that. But the book is amazing. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. But the thing about it is that unprecedented events are unprecedented for a reason, right? And for a lot of people, we're going to live in this new world where we could pause things, and there might be another pandemic, or we've seen natural disasters. And shout out, and I'm sending my love and good vibes to those that are in Oregon dealing with the fires right now that are taking over. And I saw in Colorado they got a snowstorm today, and a lot of trees got knocked down in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. There's so many things that can happen, right? And we can't control those things. But what we can do is that we can build trust and a community through transparency and vulnerability that will allow us to adapt and pivot to anything that's coming, right? I don't believe that you should learn how to do everything, like all the blocking and tackling. I believe we should build in our ability to be connected, our community, our connection. We should build trust with our customers, our clients, our partners. If we invest in trust right now by being very transparent and vulnerable, talking about what good things are out there, what bad things are doing, we have to own our mistakes because nobody is perfect. If we're willing to do that today, when the next unprecedented event comes, we will be able to pivot, and we will be able to adapt much better than we were able to do this time. If you were overwhelmed and blindsided by this, most recent, pandemic, a lot of things that are going on, you're not alone. All of us were. But the ones that were able to feel, if there were people in your network that were like, wow, they really pivoted through that, or man, they're really finding success, or wow, they're doing some great things. Like, how are they getting up out of bed? Like, I can't even get out of bed. my promise to you is more than likely, they're very comfortable in who they are. They've been very transparent and open, and they have their circle of people that they're vulnerable with and that hold them up. And although they were rocked and although they were knocked down, they were able to look at things and be like, okay, I know how to move forward, and I believe in doing this. And this is that thing where, when I worked in cybersecurity for the Department of Defense, going all or nothing with security is a guaranteed failure. It's all about being strategic with how you change your passwords. And just because it's a 30-character password does not mean it's more secure than a 6-character password. And I've talked about that story a lot, but where I bring this all back to is that when we think about things, more often than not, we want trust and we want our community after we screw up, after something rocks us to the core, after we're all of a sudden we're homeless, or we've, our business is flailing. And we're like, please trust us, please help us. And if you're asking for people to trust you and help you after you've already screwed up, it's too late. And I know that's hard to hear for many of us, but I do believe right now, customers, our employees, our clients, our friends, our family members are demanding, supporting, and amplifying transparency and vulnerability. And even if that's scary for you, what I'm going to ask you to do on that is that it's up to you to move from judging people based on what they share to trying to educate yourself on why someone does something and start to be more empathetic. Because something like sex work, right? The idea that sex workers have been diminished as a job, and the fact that they can't open bank accounts, to me is ridiculous, right? And it's a whole nother rant for a whole nother the piece of this, because there are so many people that they're putting food on their table and they're doing things that aren't harming others. And just because we disagree or our religious beliefs or whatever our beliefs are, we wouldn't do that ourselves, doesn't mean we should be judging them for what they're doing. Rather, we should see it for what they are and who they are. And I can tell you a lot of the people that I know that are, especially in that space, that are single moms that didn't want to spend less time with their children, that are now able to spend all day with their children, put their children to bed, and work on a cam at night and provide for their family and be there for their child. To me, they're an inspiration. And I'm excited because I believe we're seeing more transparency and vulnerability, more people talking about mental health. I watched a very powerful documentary just the other day on child trafficking, and it was about the underground railroad, or oh man, I can't believe forget the name of their Underground Railroad Project. The Underground Railroad Project, it was a documentary actually produced by Russell Brunson over there at ClickFunnels. Super powerful documentary. I balled up and was crying much of the documentary. But one of the things that, we're hearing more people talk about the fact that there's 2 million people in the world today, 2 million children that are being slaved, that are being sold, and that we have to change that. We have to do our part. And we're able to start to have these conversations because they're not things we want to talk about. Like, I don't want to be talking about child slavery and thinking about, kids. I have my 3 daughters and the 4 children in my life. But these are things that we have to start talking about. We have to start owning. We have to start being able to put out there to the world so that we can change them. There shouldn't be children in foreign countries being sold into slavery in the world that we're living in today. And just because someone was born into a kid was born into a family that could love them, shouldn't make them better than everyone else. And I share all of that because if you're too scared to be transparent or vulnerable right now, it's okay. It's about baby steps. But what you can do today that is non-negotiable is stop judging people based on what they're sharing because you wouldn't share it or you wouldn't do it. And start asking yourself, why are they doing it? Start listening to them. Start learning. Start being willing to be empathetic towards them, because being empathetic doesn't require that you agree with what someone else is doing or that what's going on. It means that you're willing to feel what they feel and walk in their shoes. And I believe this is one of those exciting things that's happening. And then number 6, the last one here, man, I'm fired up, as you guys can tell. we are more alike than we are different. Shout out to Rebecca Ward. I see Rebecca's watching over there on Facebook. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody who's watching live. Thank you to Restream, my sponsor, for sponsoring not only this podcast, but also the podcast, Press the Damn Button, my interview podcast as well. But this, to me, is the most important thing that we can take out of COVID. And we should think about this in who we hire. We should think about this in the circle of friends we keep. We should think about this in how we're being optimistic and positive about the life that is going forward. And I share all of that because this is what I want us to think about. This is what I want us to really kind of zone in on. And that is that it doesn't matter where you grew up, doesn't matter your resume, your background. It shouldn't matter your skin color or your sexual orientation. The fact that women still get paid 72 cents on the dollar of what a man gets paid is just asinine. And as a dad of 3 girls, it rips my heart out. But we have to change all of these things, and we have to start making these changes because the coronavirus should teach us all. It doesn't matter where you live, who you are. I think I've lost count. I think I'm up to 16 people that I know directly through my Facebook community that have lost a loved one or lost their lives to COVID. And it's a great reminder that money doesn't make us better than others. The skin color doesn't make us better than others. It's times like this, and I always say we are greater than me. If we want to do great things, we have to work together. If you want to be a great entrepreneur and solopreneur, you're only great if you're able to outsource and work with people that can do what you can't do. If you want to be a great brand and great company, you're not great because of the products you sell or the marketing slogan that you create. You're great because you have great people working at your company and you empower those great people to do great things. And it's up to us to own that, to believe in that, and also to do our own work in going above and beyond and making a difference in that arena and really kind of pushing things forward. And so the last thing I want to leave you guys with, for this episode of the podcast is actually a quote. And it's a quote I heard fairly recently from let's zoom in here. Hopefully you guys can read that quote. It's a quote I heard fairly recently within a documentary. And I feel like I'm talking a lot about documentaries here on this show, but it's a Benjamin Franklin quote. And it simply says, "Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are." This quote hit me really hard, and it's been something I've been wrapping my head around in my own life, using my own influence for good. I've loved being on the social board for No Kid Hungry. I was able to contribute for a while to a great cause called Help Erase, which was focusing on erasing child trafficking. But I wasn't doing enough. I haven't been doing enough, and I'm going to own that, and I'm putting it out there. I've also owned the fact that I've been attempting to be a silent ally. And when, first of all, no one should self-identify themselves as an ally. That's what someone else identifies for you. And that being silent is no longer okay. And that we have to step up and we have to educate. I had some very difficult conversations with my daughters just this weekend when we were going to the farmer's market, and the Black Lives Matter protest here in my local small town that I participated in recently was there. And we walked over there, and I talked to my daughters about what was going on and why we are doing this and what needs to change, and having those conversations and having these difficult things, because we have to be outraged in the things that have been going on that we've either been naive to, we've been too distant to care, or maybe in many cases we didn't believe that we can make an impact. And I guess I'll leave you guys with this on this episode of the FOMOFanz podcast, and I'll switch back in, that I truly do believe that we are living in the greatest time in history, that it shouldn't matter your race, your religion, your background, your resume, that we have the ability to tell our stories, to put ourselves out there. We have the ability to find our tribe. If you like underwater basket weaving and you like doing it in your socks, there's probably a Reddit community, and there's also probably a TikTok hashtag for you. And what I mean by all of that is that we have to come together to make a difference. We have to learn. And rather than allowing this world that we've been living in, right? Rather than allowing everything that's been going on to dictate how we're living. And for many of us, I know that we're just waiting for it to go back to normal. Well, guess what? It's never going back to normal, and it never should, because the normal in the past was not good enough. It wasn't good enough for our kids. It wasn't good enough for our friends. It wasn't good enough for our families. It wasn't good enough for anyone. And it might have taken a pandemic to make that happen, but we should own these things. We should use these lessons for good. We should be able to take these and make a difference. And so my challenge is, hopefully that one of these 6 things resonated with you in your business, in your personal life, and you're willing to take the march and make a difference. I believe, as devastating as all of the loss of lives are, and for anyone that wants to use caveats, if it killed one person, that's too much, too many people dying, right? And I hate the analogy of connecting things to the flu, because I think the flu is also devastating, that it kills so many people, and it's a silent killer. And child trafficking is a silent killer, and there's so many things that are going on. And I see a bunch of you that are watching this live that are talking about how difficult it was to have conversations with your children or your parents or those in your network. And I know the conversations are difficult, and I've struggled many times. I've shied away from a couple of them, but part of it is also owning the fact that when you do shy away, recognizing that, and then recognizing how you can do something different and how you can make the changes. And so I know this is a long episode. I know that I was fired up and I went deep into each one of these 6 things, but hopefully it was valuable for you guys that were listening. I do believe that we got this, that the future is going to be better than it's ever been, that a year from now, we're going to start making headway, and the vaccines are going to start allowing us to do things that we want to be doing and travel and do a lot of those things. But I don't want us to go back to normal. I want us to be able to learn from all the things that we've learned, learn about ourselves, about what we care about in life, and make those tough decisions. Sell the fancy car so that you don't have as big of a payment, so you can do things differently. Make those adjustments in life. It's not easy. I'm still one that's going through it myself, but I do believe we can each do our part. We can each make a difference. And if we're each willing to do that, I think the world is a darn good place, and I believe that we are destined for doing good things out there. So, my name is Brian Fanzo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check out our sponsor, Restream.io. They're the ones that are powering, allowing me to do all of these cool things that you guys see on the screen, allowing me to broadcast this to all the different channels. For those listening on the podcast, if you love this podcast, I would love an iTunes review. I know I don't usually ask for them. And I know people that coach me are always like, Brian, if you don't ask, you won't get. But I know I took a long time off of this show, and I'm so thankful for all of you that did such an amazing job of coming back and listening to it. But if you want to support the show, share this out with your friend, put it in your email newsletter. Even just hey, send the episode to one person. If each listener sends us to one person, that'll help me. It'll help my sponsor. And it'll hopefully continue this amazing journey that we've been doing this show since November of 2014. Whoa, crazy, right? 6 years. So until next time, my friends, make it a great day. I truly do believe we're gonna do this. We're gonna do some great things together, and I'm excited for the future and making it all happen. Till next time, my friends. Cheers.